No one believed Emma Foster when she first told them she had saved a dying bear's life. "You'll get yourself killed," they said. "Wild animals don't understand kindness," they warned. But 2 years later, when that same bear walked out of the forest in front of 50 witnesses and did something amazing, every single person who doubted her was left speechless. This story begins on the coldest morning of 2022 in Montana's mountain country. Emma was walking to her small grocery store when she heard it, a sound of pain so deep it made her stop in her tracks. It came from the forest, where fresh snow covered everything in white. Now everyone who lives in bear country knows 3 important rules. 1, never go into the forest alone. 2, if you hear an animal crying, walk the other way. And 3, never ever get close to a grizzly bear. Emma broke all these rules that morning. She found the bear lying in the snow, blood everywhere. A metal trap set by illegal hunters had caught its back leg. The bear was huge, the kind that could kill a person with one swing of its paw. But it was dying. Its eyes were cloudy with pain, its breathing was shallow, and its massive body was growing weaker by the minute. Most people would have called the wildlife officers and walked away. That would have been the smart thing to do. But by the time help arrived, the bear would have been dead. Emma knew this. She also knew what she was about to do could cost her her life. The bear's eyes met hers. In that moment, something passed between them, something that would change both their lives forever. Emma made a choice that would not only save the bear's life, but would lead to one of the most incredible animal stories ever told in Montana. What happened next was just the beginning, but it's what the bear did when it came back 2 years later that left everyone stunned. Even the scientists couldn't explain it. Even the old-timers who had lived in these mountains their whole lives had never seen anything like it. This is that story, a true tale about a woman who dared to help a dying bear, and how that bear remembered. It's about courage, kindness, and the amazing things that can happen when we choose to help instead of turn away. And it all started right here, in the snowy forests of Montana, with one woman and one bear, neither knowing that their story would become a legend. The rescue was not easy. Emma knew she had only minutes to decide what to do. The bear was losing blood, and the freezing temperature made everything worse. She ran back to her store, grabbed her first aid kit, some blankets, and all the meat from her freezer. Her hands shook as she filled her backpack, knowing that every minute could mean the difference between life and death. When she returned, the bear was still there, its dark eyes following her movements. Emma's heart beat so fast she could hear it in her ears. She started talking softly, the way she would to a scared animal. "It's okay, big guy. I'm going to help you." The bear made no sound, but its eyes never left her. Getting close to the trap was the hardest part. Emma moved inch by inch, watching for any sign that the bear might attack. But something amazing happened. The bear stayed still, as if it knew she was trying to help. Up close, Emma could see how bad the wound was. The metal teeth of the trap had cut deep into the bear's leg, and the cold had made the metal stick to its flesh. Emma worked for hours in the snow. First, she had to figure out how to open the trap without hurting the bear more. Her fingers were numb from the cold, but she couldn't stop. She used a long stick to press the release mechanism, and finally the trap opened. The bear let out a deep groan but didn't move. The next part was even harder. The wound needed cleaning, but Emma knew that touching a wild bear's injury was probably the most dangerous thing she had ever done. She soaked claws in warm water and antiseptic, moving slowly, always talking to the bear in a soft voice. Surprisingly, the huge animal remained calm, only flinching occasionally when she touched the sore spots. Hours passed. Emma cleaned the wound, put medicine on it, and wrapped it in bandages. She gave the bear water and left pieces of meat near its head. The sun was setting by the time she finished, and her whole body ached from working in the cold. She covered the bear with blankets to keep it warm through the night, knowing she had done everything she could. That night, Emma barely slept. She worried about the bear, about infection, about whether it would survive until morning. She got up several times to check through her window, using a flashlight to see if the bear was still in the same spot where she had left it. The next morning, Emma returned with more food and medicine. The bear was awake but weak. For the next 5 days, she made the same trip, bringing food, changing bandages, and talking to the bear. Each day, she saw a little more life in its eyes. The wound slowly began to heal. On the 6th day, something wonderful happened. The bear managed to stand up. It was shaky and couldn't put much weight on its injured leg, but it was standing. Emma watched from a safe distance as the massive animal took its first steps. The bear turned to look at her, and in that moment, Emma could have sworn she saw gratitude in its eyes. By the end of the week, the bear was strong enough to walk into the forest. Emma knew this was how it should be. Wild animals belong in the wild. That morning, she brought food one last time. The bear ate, then looked at her for a long moment. Then slowly and carefully, it turned and limped into the trees. Emma thought that was the end of the story. The bear was healed and life would go back to normal. But sometimes life has bigger plans than we can imagine. Over the next 2 years, other hikers and rangers would occasionally report seeing a large male grizzly in the area. This bear was different, they said. It seemed to watch people from a distance, but never showed any aggression. It had a distinctive limp in its back leg and a patch of lighter fur where the wound had healed. Each time Emma heard these stories, her heart would beat a little faster. Could it be her bear? She tried to tell herself not to be silly. Wild animals don't remember people. They don't feel gratitude. At least that's what everyone said. But on a sunny morning in June, exactly 2 years after the rescue, that same bear would prove everyone wrong. In front of dozens of witnesses at Emma's grocery store, it would do something so extraordinary, so unbelievable, that even the most skeptical wildlife experts would be left searching for explanations. An act that would challenge everything we think we know about wild animals and their capacity for memory and emotion. No one who saw what happened that morning would ever forget it, and soon the whole world would know about the bear who remembered. The morning it happened started like any other summer day in Montana. Emma was outside her grocery store, arranging fresh fruit on the display stands. It was the kind of perfect June morning that brought everyone out. Kids were riding their bikes on the street, tourists were taking pictures of the mountains, and locals were chatting on the store's wooden porch. Nobody noticed the bear at first. It came from the forest edge, moving slowly but purposefully toward the store. A young boy on his bicycle saw it first and screamed. That's when everyone turned and saw what was coming their way. Panic erupted instantly. Parents grabbed their children, tourists ran for their cars, and someone shouted for Emma to get inside. But Emma stood frozen, her heart racing as she recognized the bear. It was larger than she remembered, its fur thicker and healthier. But she knew those eyes, and there was that same slight limp in its back leg, the scar from the trap barely visible through its fur. The bear was now less than 50 feet from the store. People were calling the police, and someone had run to get Tom, the local wildlife officer. Emma could hear car doors slamming and people yelling at her to run, but something told her to stay still. What happened next was so incredible that even today, people still struggle to believe it, despite the dozens of videos taken by stunned onlookers. The bear stopped about 30 feet from Emma. Complete silence fell over the crowd. Then, with gentle movements that seemed impossible for such a massive predator, the bear lowered its head to reveal something that made several people gasp out loud. There, carefully held in the bear's mouth, was a tiny bear cub. The sight was so unexpected, so contrary to everything people knew about wild bears, that several witnesses later reported getting goosebumps. Male bears were known to kill cubs, not save them. Yet here was this enormous grizzly, deliberately bringing an injured cub to the one person who had shown him kindness. The mother bear had been hit by a car the day before, something Emma would learn later. This cub was orphaned, injured, and would have died without help. The big male bear looked at Emma, then at the cub, then back at Emma. The message was clear as day. It remembered how she had helped when it was dying. Now it was bringing another bear who needed help. By this time, about 50 people had gathered at a safe distance, phones recording what was happening. Tom, the wildlife officer, stood with his tranquilizer gun ready, but even he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Everyone watched in stunned silence as the bear used its nose to gently push the cub a little closer to Emma. Emma's hands were shaking as she slowly took a step forward. The big bear stayed perfectly still, watching. She took another step, then another. When she was close enough, she could see the cub was breathing, but badly hurt. Very slowly, Emma knelt down and picked up the cub. The moment she had it safely in her arms, The big bear stood up. It looked at her for a long moment, and Emma saw the same intelligence in its eyes that she had seen 2 years ago. Then, with a grace that seemed impossible for such a huge animal, it turned and walked back toward the forest. At the edge of the trees, the bear stopped and looked back one last time. Dozens of cameras captured this moment. The moment when a wild grizzly bear showed that it not only remembered the kindness shown to it, but had understood enough to bring another bear in need to the one person it trusted. The bear disappeared into the forest, but the story was just beginning to spread. Within hours, the videos were all over the internet. News crews from around the country were calling. Scientists and wildlife experts were flying in to investigate. Everyone wanted to understand how a wild grizzly bear could show such complex reasoning and emotion. The little cub survived, thanks to Emma getting it to a wildlife center in time. As for the big bear, it was seen occasionally in the area, but never came that close to town again. It didn't need to. It had done something that changed how we think about wild animals forever. The videos of that morning have been watched millions of times. Experts still debate how a wild animal could show such unexpected behavior. But for the people who were there, who saw it with their own eyes, there's no debate. They saw a bear remember kindness and return it in the most stunning way possible. Emma's story teaches us that kindness can come back to us in the most unexpected ways, that animals might understand more than we ever imagined, and that sometimes the most amazing moments in life happen when we're brave enough to help others, even when everyone else says we're crazy to try. The story of Emma and the bear spread far beyond the mountains of Montana. News channels played the video of the bear bringing the injured cub hundreds of times. Scientists came from around the world to study what had happened. How could a wild bear remember someone who helped it 2 years ago? How did it know to bring an injured cub to the same person? But the most powerful proof of this incredible event wasn't in the videos or the scientific studies. It was in what happened to the little cub. Under the care of wildlife experts, the orphan cub grew stronger each day. They named him Hope, a reminder of the extraordinary chain of events that saved his life. A chain that started with one woman saving a dying bear, and that bear remembering enough to save another life 2 years later. The big male bear was seen occasionally in the forest around town. Rangers identified him by his distinctive limp, a reminder of the day Emma found him dying in the snow. But he never approached people again. He had done what he needed to do, showing everyone that wild animals could understand and remember kindness in ways no one had thought possible. Emma's grocery store became famous. People came from all over just to meet the woman who had saved a dying bear and received such an amazing show of gratitude 2 years later. They all wanted to hear the story firsthand, how she found the injured bear, how she spent days nursing it back to health, and most importantly, how it returned with an injured cub, trusting her once again to help when help was needed most. Today, a small plaque stands outside Emma's store. It tells the story of 2 rescues, one by a woman brave enough to help a dying bear when everyone said she was crazy to try, and one by a bear who remembered that kindness and trusted her enough to help save another life. The plaque reads, "Sometimes the greatest acts of kindness come full circle," reminding us that love and gratitude speak a language all living creatures can understand. Emma still runs her grocery store. She still helps animals when she can, but she'll never forget that summer morning when a bear she saved came back to show that kindness, even toward wild animals, is never forgotten. It's a reminder that when we choose to help others, even in the most desperate situations, that kindness might come back to us in ways that leave everyone stunned. Life in the small Montana town changed after Emma saved the bear. At first, people called her foolish and reckless. Some customers stopped coming to her store, afraid that the bear might return looking for more help. The local rangers posted warning signs around the area, and parents kept their children closer to home. Emma found herself becoming known as the Crazy Bear Lady, a title she didn't particularly enjoy. But as weeks turned into months, something interesting started happening. People began spotting the bear in the wilderness around town. Unlike other grizzlies that stayed deep in the forest, this one seemed to linger at the edges of civilization. Hikers would see him watching them from a distance. Campers would find their sights undisturbed even when bear tracks showed he had passed nearby during the night. The bear's behavior was so unusual that wildlife researchers started keeping track of these encounters. Tom, the local wildlife officer, visited Emma regularly with updates. "This bear is different," he would say, showing her photographs taken by motion sensor cameras. "See how the wound healed? Left a patch of lighter fur right there, and that limp still noticeable when he walks. But what's really strange is how he behaves around humans. The bear never showed aggression, never raided trash cans like other bears, never tried to break into homes looking for food. Instead, it seemed to watch and observe, keeping its distance but staying close enough to be seen. Some people even started calling it Emma's bear, though Emma always corrected them. 'He's not my bear,' she would say. 'He's wild, and that's how it should be.' During the first winter after the rescue, Emma worried about whether the bear would survive hibernation. The leg had healed, but would it be strong enough to help him gather enough food? When spring came, she was relieved to hear the first reports of sightings. The bear had made it through the cold months and looked healthier than ever. The second year brought more strange stories. Campers reported seeing the bear lead smaller animals away from dangerous areas before storms. Rangers found evidence of the bear dragging dead deer closer to areas where younger bears could feed safely. It was as if the bear had developed a protective instinct, not just for itself, but for other creatures as well. Emma kept everything she heard in a journal. Each sighting, each strange behavior, each time someone mentioned seeing a large grizzly with a slight limp. She couldn't explain why, but she felt certain that someday, somehow, their paths would cross again. "Wild animals are smarter than we think," she would tell people who asked about her experience. "They understand more than we give them credit for." As the second winter approached, the bear sightings became less frequent. Some thought it had finally moved deeper into the wilderness, perhaps finding a mate or establishing new territory. Emma wondered too, but something told her this wasn't the end of their story. The local paper ran a feature article about Emma and the bear on the 2-year anniversary of the rescue. They interviewed wildlife experts who explained that while bears have excellent memory, especially about places and food sources, there had never been documented cases of bears showing deliberate gratitude toward humans. "Bears are instinctual creatures," one expert said. "They don't form emotional bonds or remember acts of kindness the way we might like to think they do." Emma read these articles and kept quiet. She knew what she had experienced that day in the snow. She had seen the intelligence in those eyes, felt the connection that formed during those long hours of caring for the injured animal. And somehow she knew that the bear remembered too. Spring came again, bringing with it the usual burst of activity in the mountain town. Tourists started arriving for the hiking season. The forest turned green with new growth. And on a quiet morning in June, exactly 2 years after Emma had found a dying bear in the snow, something would happen that would prove every expert wrong and leave the entire town in awe. Perhaps there's a lesson here for all of us. Every day we have chances to help others, whether they're people or animals. Sometimes these opportunities seem scary or impossible, just like Emma's moment with the dying bear. You might think your small acts of kindness don't matter, or that they'll be forgotten. But Emma's story shows us that kindness can come back in amazing ways. If you were moved by this incredible tale of unexpected friendship and want to discover more extraordinary stories that remind us of the magic in our world, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We bring you carefully selected true stories that touch hearts, challenge what we think is possible, and show the amazing connections between humans and animals. Don't miss our weekly uploads of remarkable real-life events just like Emma's story. Hit that subscribe button now, turn on notifications, and join our community of believers in the power of kindness. Because just like Emma's bear, you never know when an act of kindness will return in ways that leave everyone stunned.